Hey guys, how's it going? My name is Brendan and welcome back to the channel. If you guys are new here, it is great to have you. And today I have another Bitcoin technical analysis and price prediction for you. Now I know it's been a minute since the last video, but really not that much has happened since then. Bitcoin has continued to reject $42,000 and continued to hold the 30K support area. But now I want to talk about where Bitcoin can go from here. Is it bullish? Is it bearish? I'm going to break all that down today because I have quite the controversial opinion about this topic. So if that sounds interesting at all, make sure you guys stick around for the entire length of the video, as there will be important information discussed the entire way through. But that being said, let's go ahead and dive on into this one. Now again, Bitcoin has once again failed the 42K resistance area. We touched this. A lot of people are saying, this is the end of the bull market. You're stupid if you didn't accumulate. I have been, since the initial drop, saying, if Bitcoin breaks this 30K support area, it is going to tank into the 20s. In fact, I am one of the few people who believes that it will break before we see a new all-time high. Now, I know that that is very controversial, but let me explain why here. Now, again, we had the death cross on the 4-hour, not that significant, but we also have the rejections from this 200 EMA for the first time on Bitcoin's 4-hour since a really long time. The last time it even touched this was the beginning of May, so over a month ago. Now with this continuing, we are seeing the consistently lower swing highs over here. We're also seeing the higher swing lows. Now, the higher swing lows, in my opinion, is one of two very bullish things about Bitcoin that is left. And if this breaks, things will, in my opinion, will get very, very ugly for Bitcoin very, very fast. Now, if this breaks, which it is so close to doing, so if you're a bull, you really want to see this hold here. Otherwise, I don't see too much of a bullish argument for Bitcoin. I already think that there's a big argument saying that this is a descending triangle. However, putting all that to the side, putting aside the 50 EMA, if we want to argue from anything from a bullish perspective, it's if this can hold and if support can hold on Bitcoin, then it does have a pretty good chance. Now on top of this, you do have the RSI showing consistent higher swing lows, and this is a really bullish thing to see. In fact, I would say above everything else, this is the most bullish thing for Bitcoin right now. And we're seeing almost the same thing on the one-day chart, or potentially on the one-day chart. Not quite as vivid. However, that on a 4-hour time scale is something that's really, really good to see. That is multiple forms of bullish divergence, multiple higher swing lows from an attempt to the downside, separate different macro plays, meaning that these are spread apart. So, ultimately, I think if you're a bull, you're going to like that the most. However, let's talk about the bearishness of Bitcoin over here. Number one, we're continuing to reject that 42K area. On top of everything, I think one of the most bearish things, in my opinion, is that we are at an imminent point of having a death cross after a head and shoulders on a one-day time scale. Now, there's a lot of people who think that death crosses on 1 days don't mean anything. I think that they are commonly confused as to death crosses below the 1 day are often inconsistent, and that is 100% true. The death crosses on timescales that are below the 1 day are very often inconsistent. But when we're talking about when death crosses are on a 1 day timescale, this is how close we are to reaching this point. And if you remember, the last time that we had a scenario like this was back in 2017, and I want to zoom in and kind of just talk about this here. And after we saw this, again, Bitcoin had a very nice top, similar as to what we're seeing right now. It had the death cross happen over here, and as soon as this happened, I want to highlight this. Where's my drawing tool? This happened right over in here. Bitcoin proceeded to continue tanking, had another lower swing high right in here, couldn't break the death cross, continued it, and then continued to tank. Now, from the point that Bitcoin reached its death cross after the previous bull market, if we want to measure this out, from this point to its low, Bitcoin fell another 64.5%. Now, I'm not saying that it's going to be that bad this time, but it is if it's even half as bad as that, and we tank 30%, maybe we go another 30% to the downside, which is something that I think would be very potentially likely, 33%. That would still be pretty ugly for this. Now, the next time that we saw a death cross was right over in here on the daily time scale. This one was around, November of 2019. Now, when this one happened, Bitcoin was obviously in a little bit of a rut, but from the point that the death cross happened, from top to bottom, Bitcoin continued to go down. Now, this is where I think that the argument of inconsistency comes from, because there was this transitional period from the bear market to the bull market. Now, let me get one thing straight. This was the bull market. this was the transitional period, and then this is the next bull market. This in and of itself was not a macro bull market. It doesn't align with the 4-year market cycles of Bitcoin. Bitcoin often moves in its bull markets of 4 years because of the halvenings. This is not a bull market. This is a transitional period. Right in here, I think that this is where a lot of people get the idea of inconsistency. Now, granted, when this death cross did happen, there was a lot of bearishness around this point. Bitcoin went over here. It even went to a new low after this. We can see that, obviously when the death crosses happen, even in transitional periods, Bitcoin tends to be volatile towards the downside. However, with this being in the next market cycle and the next bull run, we are not at our second, third, fourth death cross on the daily. This is the first one since the bull market. And if this is going to be anything like the previous ones, being the first death cross on a daily timescale after the bull market, it would be statistically pretty ugly. Now, obviously, this is Bitcoin. Who knows? Anything can happen. But from historical analysis, it goes way back before this. If you want to look at the further death crosses, I can make a whole separate video on that. But this is just since 2018 and onwards. So moving back over in here and looking at this chart, if this is just a fraction, let's just say that this is maybe, the last one was 65%. Let's just say that we drop another 20% from here. What would that do to Bitcoin? That would bring Bitcoin to about $24,000, which I think a lot of people can justify and say, that if this breaks down, that is a reasonable price. Now, a lot of people have their sights on like $20,000 to say that if it is going to go from here, a likely spot that it would bottom would be the previous all-time high of $20,000. I think that makes a lot of sense as well. However, we'll see if Bitcoin actually has enough strength to get down to one of those levels. On top of this, the bulls tried over here with the MACD. Not much really happened. Yes, we went back to 42K, but it's still that, that's the big resistance that Bitcoin has to break if it wants to be bullish. And man, what a rejection Bitcoin just saw. It had one green day since it rejected, right? And on top of that, that was the 200 EMA. The last time that Bitcoin touched these zones, it hit the 200 EMA, tanked to 30K. We touched it again, we tanked right back to 30K. The bulls are, I don't know how to put it. They're not strong at this place. People are not comfortable buying Bitcoin above $40,000, or else it would not be rejecting the way that it is. And I know that sounds like I'm trying to FUD or anything, but that's just the reality of the situation. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me. If people were comfortable buying Bitcoin above $40,000, it would not reject. What was this? It would not reject 25% in less than a week with one green day that got swallowed up the very next day by a monster candle. So that's just my thoughts. Obviously, there's a squeeze happening on this chart as well. Will this actually break again? I think the ultimate answer is, no one knows for sure. You can do all sorts of historical and technical analysis and use indicators and oscillators, but so long as Bitcoin can hold this support, this will co-align and go hand in hand with what's happening on the RSI. And that would be a really good thing for Bitcoin to see. And in fact, I think that that's something that Bitcoin needs to see. Moving this back to the 4-hour, if this could happen, you would have double bullish divergence on your MACD. You would have I don't even know how many forms of bullish divergence from this guy on the RSI. This would be a really good sign. And then you'd also be surviving your third swing attempt to the downside on this 4-hour time scale. Maybe, you could potentially even say that this was the fourth because of this guy. So 1, 2, 3, 4 right in here. And if this happens, things could look very bullish for Bitcoin, right? And this whole downside argument could be thrown right out the window. However, we'll just have to kind of wait and see here. I do expect that if this breaks and this 30K support breaks, things would get pretty ugly for Bitcoin. It would start just triggering sell orders, and then the sell orders would lead into the algos, and then other people would start panic selling. So that's kind of my theory here. But this is kind of the final, I guess the easiest way to put this is that this is the final support for Bitcoin before it tanks into the 20,000s, in my opinion. I don't see any kind of technical level in between here and the 20,000s area. We have rejected a consistent point, and I want to just kind of zoom out. The 42K area has been a resistance here and here and here and here. This is nothing new that this has been quite the resistance. So this is the final hope for Bitcoin, in my opinion. Now, with that being said, I am still buying cryptocurrency when it's at 30, 31, 32, 33, 34,000 for Bitcoin, because I still think that cryptocurrency is undervalued at this current price. I have the belief that it will not only go back near its all-time high, but that most cryptocurrencies will break their previous all-time high in the coming years, which is why I'm accumulating on the dips. And that means if I'm wrong here, I'm still accumulating. So in my opinion, that's the way that I'm playing this. I have the future belief that the cryptocurrencies that I buy will be worth the higher. I believe that they will go back to their all-time high, if not higher, even if it's a fraction of their all-time high. If we go back halfway to the all-time high from here, I would still be profitable buying at this point. So again, nothing I say is legal, financial, or tax advice, but I have a hard time convincing myself after everything bearish that I said that when Bitcoin is down over 50%, almost 52%, this is still a buying opportunity for me, because if Bitcoin goes back to a fraction of its all-time high, I can still make 50%. If it goes back to its all-time high, I'm making over 100%. If it goes past that, I'm making over 100%. So that's kind of my thought with these. I mean, and with altcoins, it's even more, obviously, but altcoins are more volatile on both sides of the spectrum, so it's a double-edged sword. But with that being said, I hope you guys did enjoy this video. I know this was a little bit of a long one, but hopefully this recapped everything that was on my mind, the way that I'm playing this market. Yes, I am buying cryptocurrencies. I'm hesitant on buying altcoins at this point. Because if the floor falls, altcoins are going to get absolutely annihilated on the downside. Whereas I think Bitcoin's a safer buy at this point, because if this tanks, Bitcoin might go down like 20% and altcoins would go down like 45% or something like that. So that is it for this video. If you did enjoy, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, because we have lots more content like this one coming out for the rest of this year. Hope you guys did enjoy, and until next time, I will see you in the next video.